Typically in past years, we've looked at making budget adjustments at the end of a fiscal year, but it's come to our attention that we probably should be looking at these things if we're going to make major changes during the middle of the year, if necessary, or whenever you're ready to make these changes. So what you have in front of you here, and I do have more handouts if somebody wanted these, they're in this pile here somewhere. Some budget adjustments here, please. And first, when we're taking a look at the revenues here, and I have basically the budget that was presented at the annual meeting on 8/8 of 2011, and then the budget that was amended when we set the levy on 10/17/11, and then the budget that we will present for amending on 4/16/2012, and then there will be one other budget amendment, and that will be at the end of the year. But what I want to point out that we're looking at a total budget amendment of about $231,977. So we're looking at additional revenues of, again, $231,977. We picked up some additional fees through the buildings, primarily about $21,000 through some athletic things that were going on. $35,802, which is from additional common school library fund money, which can only be used for library books, and that's where it was spent. And then also about $5,000 in transportation aid. At the time when we did the levy, we weren't for sure that we were going to get that Native American language grant. We found out that we were getting that, so that's been put into the budget, as well as probably the bigger ticket item here for about $140,000 is some Microsoft credits that we're receiving reimbursement for. And those do have the impact of, along with the $5,000 additional transportation aid of allowing us to spend a little, have extra revenues that we did not anticipate having either at the annual meeting or when we set the levy. So then when we take a look at our budget dollars here, when we're looking at our expenses and budget changes here, we'll start with the first $110,000. Now, these really don't make a lot of sense to most people right now, but these are different account codes that are universal through the state of Wisconsin. We typically look at them through the eyes of what we call a citizen's guide, but this is what needs to be published in the newspaper, so we'll focus on this. Undifferentiated curriculum is typically elementary. We usually look at that. There's a decrease in expenditures of $61,608, and the majority of this is coming through insurance changes, not as many people retiring as we anticipated, so a little bit less in the severance there that we had to pay out this year, and also in these two accounts here, the 120 and the 110, because most of our staff sit in those two accounts. With the insurance changes we'll be talking about, we'll probably save another additional $70,000 because we pay our July bill in June. So I didn't anticipate saving any money when we were talking in January, but through a combination of what we'll talk about here in a little bit, you'll see where that came from. I also expected to see an increase, so I put an additional $50,000 in there to pick up whatever increase we had potentially coming in July. So you're seeing a net savings between the two of about $120,000 or thereabouts. And then along with some other insurance changes and some savings in substitutes costs, you're seeing a reduction in these budgets. The other budget that I would just point out, and follow the line, $170,000 here. This is mainly seeing a reduction in the budget from grants, so we're not too concerned about that because grant expenditures equal grant revenues. And then the other areas that you're seeing a little bit of an increase in here is our co-curricular activities. Partially because we saw more additional revenues up here. That means we had more athletic events, so that kind of offsets a little bit of the increased costs that we're having here, some of the expenditures there. And I will say, I got concerns with our building budgets, and they're managing. They're okay. They're, some are up, some are down a little bit this year, and they're in the norms. We will struggle in this area right here every year to maintain the programs in both the co-curricular and the non-co-curricular events with that cut that we did last year. Part of this, when we talk about this is the big experiment. Last year we made all the cuts. Now we're starting to find out, can we make them stick? And this is one area where we're struggling a little bit. Tom's worked hard at this. I've talked to him, but as you're looking at things, we'll be purchasing some football helmets that are going to cost $8,800. We're going to try to do that this year to get that in the budget. And the reason isn't necessarily always because the helmets are not usable anymore. It's because they have new standards, and a lot's coming from the different concussion issues that students are having. So you got some significant costs in the co-curricular areas. Curriculum instruction, we're seeing some savings there. Overall, in the curriculum budget, Barb has chose to underspend by about $80,000. The net effect of that, though, is just showing about $50,000 here because some of that is coming back in Microsoft credits. And then when we take a look at general administration, you're seeing the increase of about $20,000, and that's primarily due to legal fees going through the handbook changes and some of the changes that have been going on not only here in Tomah but all over the state, making sure we're in compliance. And there's been a lot. Mrs. Zardi is shaking her head, yes. The other is a overall increase on the business administration. Now, of this $514,000, about 2 months ago, or actually a month ago, you approved the purchase of 4 buses. So that's putting in an additional $263,000 or thereabouts right there. So that's for the buses that we purchased. The rest of that would be in the increase would be absorbed by the Steinhoff property in the high school. So that's where you're primarily why you're seeing the increase in this budget. And then as we look at insurance and judgments here, 270, that's up slightly, not too concerned about that. And then we're seeing a decrease again in our $430,000 account, which is our transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 27. Again, because of the, as I talked about earlier, the decrease in cost of salary and fringe benefits, we're able to lower those costs, and that's why you're seeing again a decrease in those costs over there. So a lot of things work together this year to allow us again to purchase additional buses and to even consider looking at the Steinhoff property or the high school. Now I can tell you that there is $177,000 in the construction account that I haven't spent because I've been sitting on that, making sure that our utilities come into where they need to go. Well, we figured out in January real quick that it was pretty warm out and we'd be saving money there. So it really wasn't rocket science to figure that one out. But again, I don't want to overextend the district at any point in time by jumping kind of ahead of the game here. I want to make sure that we kind of have, so to speak, our ducks in order, that at the end of the year, as best as we come in, that we will come in with revenues equal expenditures. So what I would ask you tonight, though, is to approve the budget adjustments. You're not approving any projects in these areas, you're just approving the budget adjustments. If you wanted to, you could wait until the reorganization meeting if you wanted to take a look at them a little closer, but once we make those adjustments, we'll publish them in the paper, and then we'll look at it again at the end of the year when we close the books. Questions, concerns, comments? I hope I didn't go too fast.
There are no real surprises here that long-term we've not been aware of as a board, so I'm wondering if that can't be approved tonight.
I would think so.
Because I don't think there's anything here that is any surprise to any of us. We've been informed of this all along. So I guess barring any problems by my colleagues, I'm going to make a motion that we approve that this evening.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second then to approve the budget adjustments for the 2011-12 school year. Any questions or further discussion? I know you mentioned, Greg, that, your auditors do like to see adjustments made in a timely manner, and I think that's important to do so that we stay on top of it, and as Mrs. Justinger said...
It's important in a couple ways. Number one, it shows you that, not only are you looking at this, but I'm looking at this, and then it's a very clear audit trail. When the auditor takes a look at these things, they can see that, not only are we making and recommending these changes, but you're also approving them and well aware of them. And I appreciate you stating what you said, Mrs. Justinger, about being in the loop on many of these things, because there really isn't anything here that we haven't talked about in some form or fashion, whether that's going out for a request for proposal on the insurance, the heating bills, different things like that.
Any further questions, discussion?
Just a thank you for your deep concern about this district. Greg, you and Cindy, and the leadership that you show. It's great to sit here and have you explain things to you, because it becomes very clear to all of us, I think. So.
It only took 2 weeks to make it clear in our head, but...
But thanks.
We got it. And a lot of help from
You bet.
the office to keep track of this stuff.
So the approval of this motion, it doesn't approve the projects, but it approves the reallocation of the monies to the accounts as we read.
Or as they've actually...
Or as they've been
Reconfigured.
reconfigured, correct. Yeah, so it's essentially no change in money, just simply moving them from an account to an
Well,
account.
there's an additional $231,977
Well, right.
in additional revenues that we didn't have at the October levy meeting, but the rest of that is relocations of unspent dollars and
Right.
budgets.
And the revenues, of course, were, as you said, they came to us.
They came through those Microsoft credits. We'll be getting Microsoft credits here as we move forward, and a lot of those Microsoft credits, as we're seeing here, will be reinvested in that technology plan that you approved
Right.
tonight.
So the approval of this motion reapproves the allocation of these monies into the accounts that we've discussed. The individual projects will be approved in subsequent meetings. Understood.
Okay. Any further questions, discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?